It is a wet day, but we are about to go racing here at Spa-Francorchamps. Welcome everybody to the second race of the weekend for the GT4 European Series, powered by Rafa Racing Club, new sponsor for the championship. Some things don't change. Spa weather, fickle as ever. Lots of fans because this race part of the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa weekend, and with an enormous field of cars, we're in for an absolutely fantastic race. The grid has formed. Cars have made their way around from the collecting area. Well, I say cars have made their way. Some are still making, such as the size of the entry for this race. We had a cracking race yesterday. It was interrupted twice by the safety car, and the second safety car period had the effect of bunching up everybody really for the last 13 minutes or so. And in the end yesterday, the win went the way of Ricardo van der Ende in the L'Espace Bienvenue BMW after a last gasp dive to find his way through. It was a really, really brave move. He gained 2 places in one and snatched race honours right at the very end. Now, today's race starts with a grid which is completely separate based on the second qualifying session, and we will turn our attention to that grid very shortly indeed. David Anderson and Ben Constanduros are trackside. Down on the grid is Gemma Scott, and she is going to be able to have a word with 1 or 2 of the drivers before we go racing. Including the man whose car is on pole position, because Stefan Bostandiev is going to share with Pavel Lefterov, and Stefan Bostandiev is with Gemma. So let us head to the grid as we get ready to go racing.
Stefan, it's your first time racing here in Spa, so of course your first time in the wet as well. How are you feeling at the moment?
Oh, a bit nervous for sure. It's our first wet race. We've showed some very good performance in the wet before. In Power Card, we were one of the quickest cars there, so we are feeling confident, but calm and focused. Yeah, first pole in GT4 European Series, first pole in GT4. This is our first year in the European Series, 3rd year in GT4. So we have the experience. We just need to keep it calm, keep it focused, keep it smart, because in the wet race, we have some fast cars around us, but it'll be very good to have a clean race, no punctures, no damage. Yeah, just to finish, hopefully for a podium. Podium will be good. But yeah, eyes on the prize, eyes for P1.
Thank you very much. Have a great race.
Thank you.
Also this race, not only part of GT4 European Series, but also the Scandinavian GT4 Series makes a very welcome return to a European circuit, or a mainland European circuit. BMWs to the fore as well. There you've got the Tom Edgar and Bekke Bessler BMW. Now that, Ben Constanduros, is not how Porsche intended a Cayman to look.
No, I went down to the Overdrive Racing crew, and there's plenty of. There's not many bits to put on the car, so they've left it. The front wheel arch actually has a little writing saying I'm supposed to be red, but it's not been liveried in red, and there's quite a bit of damage across that. They carried that through the qualifying session, in which they qualified pole, so it didn't affect the performance of the car.
Now, Mercedes, another of the many brands that we have on the grid, there you've got number 15, which is the NM Racing Team entry of Alexandra Papadopoulos and Luc Ibanez, who, after years and years and years of having the same co-driver, is now trading them in on a season basis, really. 3rd different co-driver in 3 years.
And a car that we generally see much higher up the grid in race 2 than we do in race 1. A car that we've seen with race-winning performance last year, but the Mercedes, especially in the hands of those guys, hasn't quite been there so far this year.
Now, mandatory pit stops, of course, in this race, 25 to 35 minutes with a regulation time. 2 drivers per car, except, and again, hereby hangs a tale, I suspect, doesn't it, the car of Alban Veruti, who has been very successful all season, had 4 out of 4 wins before we got to Spa, but 2 of those were on his own, and he's racing on his own again this weekend.
Yeah, it's curious, isn't he? Because he took the victory the first weekend in France with Julien Piget, but Piget couldn't be with us in the second round, and he's not here either. So Veruti still being able to pedal very fast. Let's go down to the grid then with Gemma again.
Alex, we're down here on the 3rd row of the grid. A little bit different from yesterday when you were back on 42nd, but you pulled that up to 21st, so a little bit less pressure today?
Yeah, I would definitely say there's far less pressure today. I mean, I think yesterday was a good indicator that we had solid pace in the race and that it showed the potential of what we could accomplish here in race 2. Obviously, this weather is kind of throwing a wrench in our plans, and, you know, with this amount of cars in the field starting at 62 at the start of the week, it's a bit unpredictable to see, you know, what can happen in the race with this kind of weather, but we'll figure it out and hopefully stay safe and have a good pace and just keep crawling our way up the field.
Any word from Lucas on the outlap as to how conditions are around the whole circuit?
Very, very wet.
Well, have a good and safe race. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
Gemma, you've got a scoop there. Very, very wet. So I think he is not wrong in saying that. And the rain really has been falling. It's never been that heavy, Ben. It's been sort of heavy drizzle, if you like, but it's been falling now for probably about 4 hours.
And unfortunately, we haven't had any cars running on the circuit to clear it. So we had 4 laps from the Lamborghini race that happened a couple of hours ago. The McLaren race that was to follow never started. There was supposed to be some demonstration laps that didn't happen either. And so we've probably, I don't know, I haven't done the exact maths, but maybe 2 hours worth of empty circuit filling with water. These guys have got experience, though, on their Pirelli wet weather tyres from that second race in Paul Ricard, and in the qualifying or practice session, I think it was raining as well, and from years previous. So it's not, they do have a familiarity and a comfort. Not everybody changed to wet tyres in Paul Ricard. Some, and the winner was on slicks in those wet conditions.
Benjamin Lariche is another driver to watch in this race, in the team speed car Audi that he shares with Robert Consani. That's going to be on the 5th row, and he's with Jam.
Joining now by Benjamin Lariche of car number 3, of course. Very, very wet down here. Vous êtes trompé là, Benjamin?
Ouais, ben, on a l'habitude à Spa, c'est un peu l'habitude d'avoir de la pluie. Va falloir se mettre vite en action parce que je pense pas qu'il y ait beaucoup de tours. Avec 62 voitures, il risque d'y avoir un safety car, je pense. Donc il faut se mettre vite en action pour monter en température les pneus très vite et remonter en fait.
Absolument. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Benjamin just saying there, they've got to be very safe under the safety car. He's expecting a safety car. Keep it safe and get the heat into the tyres as quick as possible.
Gemma, it looks like you're at a winter race meeting. Umbrella all wrapped up. It's supposedly July, and the race is going to start behind the safety car, which, Ben, means as soon as they move, the clock starts. So the race will be on as soon as the cars leave the line. Elite Motorsport, we talked about yesterday when we were looking at qualifying, and Alex Denning did an outstanding job in this car. Elite Motorsport, really good in Ginettas, turning to single-seaters, but new to GT4 European Series this year.
Yeah, this year with 2 McLarens, and they've been getting better and better. Alex Denning started the year in GT4 Europe in a Newbridge Aston Martin. He missed the second round of the championship in Paul Ricard, and he joins that 78 machine and got himself on the front row of the grid. Now, that was in dry conditions. Looking at the characteristics of a very sleek, very low car, I imagine in comparison to something like a BMW, it will struggle to weight transfer and struggle to generate temperature. There is the overdrive pole position car, which was that damaged when it took pole position at the start of the weekend. There is the red front wing. It does actually say identify as red. I don't know if you can see that, but the other side's red and that side is not. It's still got various bits of damage on the front that flaps around at speed, as we saw in qualifying as well.
The man from the Smart Repair Company is delayed at the gate, is he? He can't quite get there in time to polish it all out.
And the second car, which is a bit further back, the front bumper is liveried by children. I think they've had somebody kind of scribbling on it. It's brilliant.
Liveries of racing cars, always fascinating to see how they are created. Some almost by default, but anyway, now you know why the pole position car looks like it does.
And on the second row,
yes,
alongside this BMW, we expect the BMWs to do very well. That was the car that won yesterday. We've got the blue Borusan Automotive machine. There is a white one, and the reason why there's a white one is because they damaged their blue one in practice. And so we were curiously wondering why it was white, and the reason why the car is white was because it was damaged. Or has it actually now become blue again?
Well, the one that's third on the grid is now a blue car, and it was white earlier on in the weekend because in front of us...
It was that one?
It was that one.
Okay.
In front of us, we have a spotter's guide, which enables us to identify cars. Oh, no, I'm telling you a lie. It is still blue because number 12 is the blue one, and that's the one that's third on the grid. So it's yes. One is white, one is blue.
Yeah, and the white one is the 11, isn't it? Which is further back on the grid of Yediz Gedik, who will start that car.
Now then, the race is on. Although they are behind the safety car, this counts within the race itself. The safety car is on track. The clock has started. It's not the formation lap. It is the first lap of the race because it will count. So they're behind the safety car, but this is the race. The lap that they are on is lap number 1. It is not the final warming up lap. So race is on. And the clock is a-ticking as the field turns out of La Source. Gives you an idea, just looking at it now, Ben, as to see how wet the road has become, that sheen across it. So absolutely vital now that they learn where the water is, where the grip is.
I can't believe we came here. 28 degrees they qualified in, and look at it now. What is it? 15, 16 degrees, but incredibly wet. Here is the grid.
And it is going to be Pavel Lefterov who starts on pole position, with Alex Denning lining up alongside him. Third on the grid is Berke Besler, and then Ricardo van der Ende, yesterday's winner, starting fourth with Benjamin Lestern ahead of Konstantin Lachner and Luc Iranyev. Next up, Stéphane Lemeret, who knows this circuit like the back of his hand. He's alongside Vincent Beltoise. Then it is Robert Consané and Ruben Delsart ahead of Etienne Shelley and Tom Empson. Row 7 of the grid is where you find veteran Alain Ferte and Ivan Jacoma alongside him. On the 8th row, one to watch here, another of the BMWs, Gabriele Piana, long way down by his standards in qualifying. He will start alongside Felix Hersiger. On the 9th row of the grid, Romain Carton and Vincent Boutellier. Next up on the 10th row, soloist Alban Baruti, and it is Marc Del Fulgencio lining up alongside him. Christophe Amon and Loic Villiger share the 11th row of the grid. Row 12, Tom Verdier and Alexandre Cugnot. The 13th row is where you find Max Kronberg and Davide Meloni alongside. The 14th row, Sacha Botteman and Jagish Gedik ahead of Cali Ward and Hans Holman. Row 16, Josef Knopp and Jessica Bachmann driving with a brother. Marcus Lungstrass shares the 17th row with Florian Grisot ahead of Nathan Schaap and Florian Brichet. On the 19th row, it is Nico Goller. Sergio Palais is alongside, and then you get to Eric Behrens and Romain Wozniak. 21st row, Patrick Skog and Nicolas Germar ahead of Alexander Weintraub and Lucas Meyer. The 23rd row, Cyril Lai, and alongside him is Taylor Hagler. Then it is Rodrigue Guillon and Marc Lopez Gutierrez. Jakob Noll is on row 25 alongside Jochen Bolting. Then it is Jean-Paul Dominici and Lulu Carr. Nicholas Hubberg lines up alongside Mikael Brunhagen. Then you've got Daniel Nilsson and Jordan Wallace. And at the back of the grid, having gone off into the gravel and not setting a time in this qualifying session, Joachim Wilder in his BMW. And the fact that we've spent most of the lap going through the grid just illustrates how healthy GT4 European Series is. Massive entry.
And we've got an onboard camera as well. Jakob Noll in the NM Racing number 16 machine will be our chauffeur in the middle of the pack. An opportunity to see how much spray is being kicked up. Now, these cars far less aerodynamically affected than, let's say, a GT3 car. We've also got Etienne Shelley with an onboard camera as well. And so they will suck up less water from the ground, but the tyres will do just as much clearing as you would expect from, let's say, a Super Trofeo or a GT3 car. That may create a little bit less visibility issues than you would expect to say in a more aerodynamically efficient car.
So we are not yet ready to go racing because the race director, Joel Doval, will give the drivers a couple of laps, maybe more, to get used to the puddles and also to perhaps to quicken the speed. So they've had a look at the circuit. Now we'll go just a little faster behind the safety car just to try and get that warmth into the tyres. And when he's happy, then he will let them go. But all of this does count, as we've been saying, within the hour. The championship has classes for silver, for Pro-Am and for Am.
Safety car in this lap.
That is the voice of Joel Doval. So 2 laps effectively behind the safety car, and then we're going to go racing. And that's good news. It's going to be really busy, this.
That's great news to get racing going so quickly, to be honest. We've been kind of waiting a lot of the day to see some racing laps, and we are going to have that very, very shortly. One bit of news to pick up from qualifying, actually. Loic Villiger impeded he did impeding in his particular session of qualifying, and so was dropped 3 positions. He qualified 19th, he's been dropped to 22nd. That is a car under scrutiny this weekend from the classification committee, as Loic Villiger is effectively driving too fast to be a bronze driver. If he is deemed too fast in this race as well, we could find him becoming a silver, and then that car will no longer be in a Pro-Am category.
There's BMW number 12. This is the car that Tom Edgar shares with Berke Besler. Yeah, now Tom has been in British GT for a season or so. Berke Besler is going to start, but Tom Edgar was very quick here last year in the Speedworks Toyota Supra, but coming to race in Europe this season. And let's see how he fares. I still think the BMW has that more slightly touring car feel than GT car feel, but they've been really successful within GT4, whether it's been in this championship, whether it's been in the regional championships or in Germany, you name it. I also think, as I was saying when we went through the grid, that the number 2 BMW, the car of Michael Schrei and Gabriele Piana, is very definitely one to watch. So the cars now make their way down to Pouhon. You can see the pole position driver, which is Pavel Lefterov, who's been another GT4 regular for a number of years, getting ready to go racing, working the car, getting the warmth into the rubber, ready for blast off. And we have got 57 cars ready to do battle in the second race of the weekend. This is the 6th race of the season for the GT4 European Series, which again runs to this traditional 1 hour, 2 driver mini enduro format, but there's the non-championship 6 hours in Rome in Vallelonga at the end of October, which promises to be a really fascinating race.
So we have 3 different categories in the European Series, and then we do have 2 different categories from the Scandinavian Championship as well. They have an AM and a Pro-Am category, so we've got to keep across 5 different races within the one race. And we will go racing after about 8 minutes of safety car. We have, of those Pro-Am category entries, the AM drivers are starting today, and they'll be handing over to the pros. So they will, for their best performance, want to get into the pits as early as possible and change around. For the silvers, it doesn't matter so much, and for the AMs, neither. Lights are off on the safety car.
So it's in this time, as we were told, and it is going to go then into the pit lane, and the drivers will, in green flag conditions, accelerate away. It has been a morning rather affected by the weather, so to go back racing is really good. The fans have had a long wait to see this race, and they're going to have a good one, that is for sure. So Pavel Lefterov leads the way. Look at Berke Besler on his toes there, trying to get into a position to attack Alex Denning as we go racing at Spa-Francorchamps, race 6 of the season in GT4 European Series. Down towards La Source they go. Good getaway by Lefterov then as he sets the car up, swoops into the hairpin. Denning goes second, Besler third, Van der Ende is fourth, Konstantin Lachenauer fifth. Pity the people in the middle of the pack though, Ben, in all of that spray.
You see so many games played by safety car in laps, but Pavel Lefterov playing no such game, no backing of the pack or anything like that, kept under the rear wing of the safety car and went as soon as the safety car went into the pits, and it's worked for him.
The back of the pack is still coming out of the chicane and over the line. That is the lane that 57 cars takes. Out of Radion go the leaders. Out of the chicane come the back markers. And there, change for second place. Berke Besler uses that grunt and go BMW to get ahead of the aero-friendly McLaren. Pavel Lefterov leads the way. Second, then it is Besler. Third is Alex Denning. They break for Lecombe. And in fact, round the outside, tries to go Ricardo Van der Ende. BMWs go second and third. Brave stuff by Van der Ende.
And it's a big tool car. It's able to lean on its tyres in these wet conditions. We saw how good Berke Besler was in the wet conditions in Paul Ricard, how good Van der Ende was yesterday in the dry conditions. Expect those BMWs to be very, very fast.
And also don't forget Ricardo Van der Ende has been racing in GT4 cars and largely BMWs for a long, long time as they're looking. Vanyev comes up, goes around the outside of Alex Denning as well. Alex not happy in these conditions, is he?
Not at the moment, just getting up to speed, but he's doing better than throwing it off the circuit, so just find your feet. There'll be so many drivers out there. He's not got that much experience in this McLaren. A little bit of understeer, off to the edge of the circuit. There might be more grip around the outside there than on the racing line. So it might look like they're heading off into the boonies, but actually it might become the wet racing line. Look how little you can see.
You're judging this off the rear lights, aren't you? To the outside line here goes Etienne Shelley in the Toyota Supra. And as he gained a place, I think he might have done actually, he found that extra traction on the outside line as you were suggesting. So Etienne Shelley in the white Supra gets up into 7th place now at the expense of the Robert Consani Benjamin Lariche Audi. But really, for the first part of the race, keeping out of trouble is absolutely critical. Van der Ende goes wide there. Number 21 is under investigation. That is the Jean-Paul Dominici driven Alpine for its safety car procedure.
Just a glimpse of the all-white Toyota Supra that we haven't seen in the championship so far this year. Stéphane Lemeray and Quentin Tiercé driving that car. It's Lemeray aboard it and in 7th position at the moment. But just expecting that car also to be very strong in the wet conditions.
Right, Shelley in that white Toyota. He's on to have a go at Alex Denning, isn't he now, for another place as they come up over the line. Lefterov leads the way. Besler second. Van der Ende is third. Ivaniev is fourth. Denning And then the car there, number 1, sorry, Stefan Lemere's car. Yes, the car that he's taken over from Corentin Thiers, who drove it in the first part of yesterday's race. So apologies. Lemere then is the one on the attack, where in that case is Shelley, 9th in the second of the Supras.
Plenty of changes of position on that first lap, but it does look as though most drivers have managed to get around the first lap, which is fantastic news. They've found their way around the circuit, they've discovered where the grip is, and they've kept it on the island, crucially.
Now, Lucky Bagnev, having worked his way up past Alex Denning as well, having a go at Ricardo van der Ende, coming now towards the sequence at Les Combes, goes to the outside line, the car quivering under braking. The pair of them absolutely on the edge. Wow. Bagnev over the curve, avoids contact, does he? Yes! And van der Ende slides his way out in front. Great racing between these two.
Didn't really feel like there was enough gap to do at the inside of the second part, and it always puts you on the wrong part of the circuit, but now he does it down the inside of Bruxelles. How much grip is there on the inside versus all the way around the outside for the BMW? He can't do it, and the Mercedes moves up a position onto the podium. It's a really good run for Luca Bagnes. Car in the gravel, though.
That is the Jordan Wallace, Oscar Lund Christensen car. Jordan Wallace at the wheel of it. There's another one that's parked down the hill. Safety car deployed, and there is the other car that is out of the race. It was running in 54th place, which means it's the Daniel Nilsson Porsche. Not a good lap for the Caymans, this.
No, and those two also were two drivers that didn't qualify and were given the permission to start this race despite the fact that they hadn't actually set a lap in Q2. And that's a real shame. So we go to safety car conditions. That shot we just had of Eau Rouge, that big wide shot, actually does look as though these guys have done a good job of clearing some of the water. There's not rain falling at the moment, and it does feel as though there was a little dry line appearing. It's certainly not sunny and boiling off the water, so it does show if you put 57 cars onto the circuit, you're going to clear the water.
So there,
look at this. There we go.
Right, absolutely, much drier, isn't it? Yeah. And also, therefore, the drivers have that confidence to push a little bit harder. Trouble is, 1 or 2 get caught out, but that's inevitable in any condition, really, when drivers start to up their pace. So the lead that Pavel Lefterov had was very nearly 2 seconds, but it is about to be about 2 meters. They're all going to bunch up behind him as the cars now come down towards the chicane, and the pit window after 25 to 35 minutes is not that far away in real terms, given how long a lap is around here, and there are 2 cars to attend to, and there is the incident. So a little bit of hip and shoulder, and sadly, because it was a slow corner, Jordan Wallace didn't have the momentum to drive out the other side. There is that tarmac that runs round the outside of the gravel bed. If you can get that far, you're okay, but he didn't have the momentum to go that far.
And I think the other car had damaged its radiator on the front left corner. You can see some steam coming out, so quickly park it before you boil the engine. So that should be a relatively easy recovery. There's the access road at turn 1, which used to be the main road of when in the 90s. This bit was still a road that you could use on a daily basis before they made a perimeter ring road around it, and you would carry on towards our camera shot and carry on down to Burnville, which was obviously the ancient racetrack. But there is the access point that you so described. I imagine he needs to park up, though. He's not allowed to carry on.
No, because he will have had mechanical assistance. Yeah. So if he'd have driven out himself, he might have been able to, but the fact that a snatch vehicle has had to give him a tow means, no, you're out of the race. So Pavel Lefterov doing a really good job early on of building a gap, but he's doing it again in terms of working the car, working the tyres. There's the other Porsche, the Daniel Nilsson car, that is also being retrieved. Pavel Lefterov leading in silver at the moment. Alain Ferté is leading in AM, and the leading Pro-Am car is going to be Loic Villiger and Antoine Leclerc's car, I think.
Yeah, so they've got ahead of Christophe Hamon in that first couple of laps, because Hamon was the leader in class when he started the race. Kronberg not far behind, so there's a nice little battle there. And just look how aggressive Lefterov is being to keep the temperature in that car, and that's the crucial thing. Keep the tyres working. You can weave left to right, and that works the front tyres, but what he's actually doing there is loading up the rear tyres as well to continue to work those. You have to be quite aggressive, and there's a high risk of getting it wrong if you're not absolutely perfect with it. But it does mean you have all 4 tyres working rather than just the fronts.
You're on board with Jakob Knoll in another of those NM Racing Team Mercedes. When we first saw NM come into GT4 European Series, it was with a Ginetta, and they were always the underdogs, but they've done a really good job with the Mercedes. So Pavel Lefterov then leading the queue of cars. The lights are still on the safety car, aren't they? But there is the Porsche. It's off the racetrack, but it's probably happened just too late for the officials to feel comfortable that they can turn off the lights at such a late stage. So one more lap behind the safety car. The last thing you want to do is turn the lights off in anticipation and then find that you have to put them back on again, because that creates even more mayhem on occasion. So the safer thing to do is to keep the car out for one more lap, and therefore we're going to have not too much time before the window opens for the pit stops. Mandatory pit stops. Everybody must come in.
It's the Berke Bessler BMW was successful in Monza in the dry conditions, both on the podium. There is the white one, as we've just had a look, and you can see in the graphic it's supposed to look like that. Yes. But unfortunately, a brand new car for the weekend, a change of car after, I think it was in the test rather than free practice, because there's no evidence of a chassis change from race control, which you can do. You can ask to do that if you have to change a car after free practice. And you might remember that AGS had an issue with the 89 car not being able to get out for qualifying. That was the car that they had changed to, having had a chassis issue with the other one. And if you go down into the paddock, you'll see some of these teams have multiple GT4 cars of the same car, but they're only running one here. Yeah. But there's a couple of others that they might run in the French Championship or in other championships, parked up, ready to go if you need to have a second one.
So the safety car is going to be in this time, and we will go back to racing then. And Pavel Lefterov was ahead of Berke Bessler. He still will be. Luke Ibanez ahead of Ricardo van der Ende. That will be the situation as the cars now come through Les Camps. And Ben is right. It has stopped raining, at least where we are at the Formula 1 start and finish area. The road is still wet. As you can see, the temperature is not high, so there's not much wind either to, in either sense, help dry the road. So it's down to what the tyres can do, but it is looking better than it was a good hour ago here. One of the earlier support races ran purely behind the safety car before it was stopped. Another support race did not happen at all because the standing water was at such a level that the officials were concerned. This race, as you see, goes ahead, and it is on a track that is becoming ever kinder to the drivers.
Not a huge amount of wind though, so I don't expect it to get to a point where we're looking on slick.
So you've got the car of Jakob Knoll, the Mercedes then heading down towards Brussels. You can see the in-car marshalling system there. You've got the safety car light flashing. So yes, there are the boards and flags around the circuit, but increasingly in modern racing, there's this in-car marshalling system. So what's put on the light panels around the circuit goes into the car as well. You've got no excuse not to see that. That's the thinking. So down through the right-hander of Campus they come, and now onto the Cours Paul Frere. And the lights are off, so we are going to go back racing this time, and it will be the end of lap number 6. So we've got round about 5 minutes or so before that pit window opens. So a couple of laps, but if you've got your quick driver in first, you'll want to maximise him. If you've got your slower driver in, you'll want to get him out of the car pronto. Time to go racing again then here as they come through Blanchimont, and Ben, this is going to get us back underway at the end of lap 6.
With another 5 minutes before the pit window opens, so a good couple of laps. This time Lefterov decides to back the pack up. He was right under the rear wing of the Audi R8 last time we went back to green flag racing. This time he is playing a bit more of a game and waiting to get on the throttle. Now he does so and drives very cleanly out of the final turn. Gives himself a nice healthy margin over Berke Bessler. That was beautifully done.
So we go racing once more, and yep, Lefterov 6/10 to the good over Berke Bessler. Then Luke Ibanez towing himself up onto the back of the BMW. Van der Ende is next, and very nearly contact there. Look between Stéphane Lemaret and Robert Consani. And on board with Etienne Shelley, he is still fighting as he plunges downhill once again. Wipers on, spray thrown into his face. Visibility gets ever more hazy as the spray goes over the windscreen, but up front, Lefterov leading Bessler then. This is not only for overall, it's also for silver honours. The best of those in a class is Alain Ferté, further down. Off the road and back on again in the background, Gabriele Piana, not making progress. He is still only 11th in number 2 BMW, as Lemaret now goes round the outside of Van der Ende, and look at this for the lead. That gap has disappeared.
Not quite close enough for the lead of the race, but round the outside, Lemeray has managed to make it stick and drag the Audi, the number 3 of Constantine, up with him. So not a good restart from Van der Ende. And now surely that BMW will get back up to temperature. Alex Denning really struggling in the McLaren. I imagine that's probably due to simply setup. It's too stiff, it's not working well in these wet conditions, and he's being swallowed up by the pack around him because he was so strong in qualifying, and he's now down to probably outside the top 10.
So overall battle, silver battle, and it's going to become 3, maybe 4. The one that's looking really menacing here is Stéphane Lemeray. Now, he's raced most things around Spa. He has probably done more miles around here than most people. He's absolutely on the limit. This is glorious to watch, isn't it, as the cars drift their way into Pouin. But Lemeray, with all of that local knowledge and a clear road ahead of him, is going to be up with those 3 leaders before long. And it is very definitely, look, a 3-way fight for leadership. Lefterov, Besler, Ibanez.
What about Luc Ibanez? This has been a really strong first stint. We haven't seen the NM Racing Mercedes up this high for a good couple of rounds now. And he's putting himself in a great position for Papadopoulos to take that car over once we get into the pit window, which is coming up, not this lap, but probably next lap. You might be able to dive in, and it is very much 3 for the lead. Lemeray with a little bit of a gap right now, and then changes Van der Ende, Constantine and Shelley behind.
So they accelerate now into Blanchimont. What, in a sense, Lefterov needs is for Ibanez to start fighting against Besler. If they hold each other up, it gives him a chance. Now, explain to me, if you can, why Van der Ende is going backwards. Yesterday's winner is clearly not happy in these conditions for some reason. And initially, he did make progress. What thickens?
Absolutely. A wet tyre has a very sharp edge on the formation of its tyre when it is new, and if you work it really, really hard, obviously the temperature will start to make those edges a little softer, and they don't bite into the wet conditions quite as much. The more you wear them out, the less tread you have to play with and less bite you have, and all the different cars will be working their tyres in a different way. There's the Aston Martin Racing Spirit of Le Mans with Constantine Lachnauer aboard that car, trying to go around the outside of Gabriel Piana, and Etienne Shelley getting past Van der Ende on a drag race down the hill. So that's really well. As you say, the BMW looking really strong in the hands of Berke Besler, but in the hands of Van der Ende, not as strong at all.
So powering uphill then, Van der Ende in a car that was certainly better in the dry than it is in the wet today. Struggling a little bit. He was 6th. And the other one that is making progress now, the BMW number 2 of Gabriele Piana. And there's a yellow flag out in the first sector as the cars steam uphill. Aston Martin's going toe-to-toe there. And again, part of the circuit where they can use all of the power. Great fighting going on. 3 abreast very nearly. The Cayman, the Alpine, Audi R8 all getting themselves together. That's the reason for the yellow. It is number 67, which is Marc Lopez Gutierrez in the Santalot Junior Team Audi. He is in exactly the same place as the Cayman was before, and you know what happened last time. And this is going to be knocking on the door of that pit window.
Yeah, and the McLaren's gone round. Was that Alex Denning, or was that the second, the 77 of Emerson? One of the McLarens spinning at Bruxelles there.
Tom Emerson, as you say, in the sister car. There's the AM leader, Alain Ferté, the car that he shares with Laurent Hergon.
Emerson's, it must have been Emerson, because Denning in the back of shot there.
Right, okay, that's another car that has fallen away. Safety car again, I'm afraid, with that car in the gravel. Safety car has been deployed once more, and Gabriele Piana, look, has just jumped ahead of Ricardo van der Ende, so Piana is getting... That car's in a really good position for a win here, because Piana will give over to Michael Schrei, and the gaps are all closing up again. I think the pit lane is going to get really busy on the first opportunity.
We're not going to be quite open yet for the guys ahead, so we're going to have that similar situation unless they quickly shut the pit lane, whereby the second half of the grid are going to be able to come into the pits a lap before the guys at the head of the field. And with the safety car bunching them up, that's going to put the second half of the grid at an advantage to the first half of the grid, because they're going to be able to, they're going to effectively be able to jump the guys ahead. Let's see if that happens, but the pit lane is going to open in 20 seconds.
Pit window delayed during safety car. Pit window delayed.
There you go.
So there's Charles Duval's voice in the background. So yes, the pit window is delayed because of this safety car period. It won't be a long safety car period because the car's on the edge of the road and the access point is just to the top of the hill there. So we are back behind the safety car, but it might be another lap before that opens.
Yeah, and that twofold. You don't want to have everybody responding to the same pit window, so everybody going in and changing at the same time. It becomes too busy, and also it would be unfair to stagger it as it was. So here is what happened. Oh, contact aplenty. Teammates contact there?
Cyril Salai, who was one of the drivers involved in the Audi, he got through the gravel. Look, that's what I was explaining earlier. The momentum carries you through. Yeah. He got out the other side, and there was another car involved, as you say. Right, so...
Well, Cyril is in a Santalok Junior team. That's the 14 car, and the 67 was also from Santalok Junior, and that was the one that was parked up in the gravel. So, yes, 2 Santalok Junior cars getting together, but there was a third one. We didn't quite see who they were. Now, McLaren that spun around was Alex Denning. Looking at the timing screens now correcting themselves, I'm afraid, and Alain Fuerte's in the pits.
He is. Now, I think that was a roll of the dice, and the message didn't get through. There he is. But if they're doing the mandatory pit stop, and they can't because the pit window is delayed. So this is outside the window. This is going to get a penalty, I'm afraid, because Alain Fuerte has been brought in, but there's been a miscommunication there. The team either haven't seen it on the timing screen, or they hadn't understood the regulation, or they weren't aware. Whatever, the pit window has been delayed. This car has done its regulation pit stop, but it shouldn't.
And we've got another one. We've got the number 13 car from Overdrive Racing. That's the teammate to the leader of our race in the pits with Joachim Bolting. So I hope that Overdrive don't make the same mistake with their leading car, as the Santalok machine has now been pulled out of the gravel. It is rolling. I don't know. No, turn right. Just go right. It's easier.
Well, I think he wants to rejoin the race.
Well, he does.
But the same problem, you've had mechanical help to get out, you shouldn't be rejoining. But anyway, number 67 is back and moving then, Marc Lopez Gutierrez. Let's look the other way for a moment, shall we? Because now that the road is clear, hopefully we can get back to racing this time around.
Lauren Hergon taking over from Alain Fuerte, and 2 very experienced drivers. They'll in the AM Cup. We're in safety car in this lap, but there'll be a hefty penalty coming the way of the 55 machine, as there will be for the 13 car. They won't open the pit window this time but I'm sure they will open it next time. So we'll get the cars back to racing, and then we'll do the pit stops. And there is, I believe, the 13 car with its new bumper, as I described earlier. Oh, but there's a shake of a head, so that car's not going any further. That is damaged. Yeah. Maybe that was the 3rd car in the Santalok sandwich.
Very possibly, very possibly. Right, drivers now getting themselves ready for their stint. Interesting that driver you were looking at for the Toyota wanders across the pit lane, because quite often all that serves to do is make the soles of your racing boots wet. Sometimes you go back in days of yore, you would often see drivers standing in the wet with overshoes, so they could kick those off, and therefore, although they were standing in a wet pit lane, their boots were dry for the pedal. Makes sense.
Sebastian Ogier threw away a victory in WRC Sardinia just a few weeks ago because his foot slipped off the brake, having stood in the mud pre-stage.
Gosh, there you go. Proves the point. We're going to go back racing then this time around. Number 55 is going to be under investigation. Then the Alpine of Laurent Hergon. Riding on board here with Etienne Scheli in number 8 Toyota. He will give that car over to Antoine Potti, who we know is a very rapid driver as well. Lights out on the safety car then. Pavel Lefterov continues to lead. Safety car is in this lap, and we will await confirmation as to when that pit window opens.
It's not open yet, so anyone diving into the pits this time would not be allowed to. Pavel Lefterov backing the field up again, goes pretty much the same time as he went earlier, but he's got such good drive coming out of that final turn.
Oh, a drama there coming into the bus stop. We've got a car in the road. There's debris all over the racetrack. It's one of the Audis, and it looks like it's low on one corner. That might be able to drag itself away from there, but if not, we're going to end up with another interruption. It's number 42, and that is a significant one. It's the Greg Gilbert Christophe Amon car, which has been very, very successful, coming here as the Pro-Am Championship leader. I'm really fearful we're going to get another interruption, but that's a very significant bit of damage.
It looked as though it's been hit from behind by somebody else, so potentially somebody running with pretty heavy damage to its car.
Oh, blimey. People are dodging the debris, people are dodging the car. Christophe Amon is trying to get out of the way, which is good news. Race is on, and up the hill, we've seen Gabriele Piana making progress. Lefterov coming under renewed attack from Beke Besler for the race lead now.
And Alex Denning's brought the McLaren into the pit, so he's going to be maybe to look at damage potentially to that car, but I'm afraid the McLaren is also pitting outside of the window.
Now this lead battle, interesting, because as the race has worn on, Beke Besler has got more and more confidence, and he's taking the fight to Pavel Lefterov. It is Porsche versus BMW then as they drop downhill. Stefan Lemeray, though, coming through in third place now, getting himself up past Luke Ibanez. He's on a mission as well. We were saying he was looking strong earlier on. Ibanez had dropped off the back of these two anyway.
Pit window is open. Pit window is open.
Pit window is open. Merci Joel Deval, the race director, and you saw the damage to the Audi.
And he's off the track, so we can keep green flag racing. We don't have to go safety car. Fantastic work from Christophe Amand. He's spent many years in the championship under safety car conditions, and that's a change for the lead. Berke Bessler simply with better traction through Pouhon and puts himself to the head of the field.
So down they come. The BMW goes through the road looking drier and drier with every passing lap now, which is really good news. It's going to be interesting to see how dry it is come the start of the crowd strike, 24 hours of Spa a little later on. But just look at this line of cars building up all the time then as they turn their way now down towards the right-hander of campus. The one that's almost shouting wait for me is Gabriele Piana in 7th place in BMW number 2. There you can see the cars streaming their way out of the pith path. Number 18 there, that's the Marcus Lundstrat Aston Martin looking to gain ground as well. And whoops, way out wide there and off the road has gone.
Ruben Del Sar from 8th position.
Yeah, the Aston he shares with Jamie Day, so that's another costly error. Bessler, though, doing a great job. He's hit the front and he's pulling away.
Confirmation, we think that McLaren, the 78 car, did hit Christophe Amand, so Alex Denning in the pits and probably out of the race, retiring that car. Got car 21 overtaking under safety car conditions, which is a little bit naughty. Dominici in the little Alpine, and now we start with our pit stop cycle. Etienne Shelley, one of the first to come in legitimately, and he'll be handing over to Antoine Poty.
Indeed, and it's Ricardo van der Ende coming in as well in the BMW number 117. It is, and Konstantin Lachnauer is in, and also Varuti and Vincent Boutellier are in as well. Right, so the pit lane is going to get busy. Part of this is to get your quick driver in at the right time. Part of it is to have clear space around you in the pit lane. You do not want to get blocked in.
One of the other things they will be definitely doing is checking tyre pressures. Guy on the front right corner there, checking to see how much the tyre has, how much temperature it has gained since they put him on at the start of the race. If it's out of a window, they'll try and let some air out to bring it back into the window of operation. That will be crucial in these wet conditions, especially as it begins to dry. They won't want to overheat those wet tyres too much.
Now Lefterov is struggling. That car is sliding around a little bit more. You can see that the BMW has got the traction. The Toyota Supra, that's sort of based on a BMW platform, isn't it, is right up around the outside of the Cayman anyway. And Lemeray there just finds all the grip on the outside line. That Supra looking so stable. He's got the inside line down towards turn 9 and Speaker's Corner. Lefterov tries to crowd him. He's still ahead just, but Lemeray lining up to make a move down towards Pouhon. Couldn't stay alongside him. Big flash of the light saying, let me by. Lefterov does not need to let him by.
That was good work around Speaker's Corner. A little bit of contact between the two of them. They both run a little bit wide, and this is going to invite Constantine to join the party. He holds a tighter inside left line. The track is going to go right with the next braking zone. Constantine looking like he could move himself up into second position here. Round the outside of the first part, puts you on the inside for the second part. That's 1, that's 2. Ish, yes!
Oh, fantastic, brilliant driving by Robert Constantine. He was 5th at the start of the lap, and now there he is, up into second place. 3rd is Lemeray, 4th is Lefterov, 5th is Ibanez, the Bessler up the road. But Constantine absolutely charging through the field. Hot knife butter cliche leaps to mind there. Great stuff.
I absolutely love that. Really good work. He'll soon be taken out of that car, and Benjamin Larouche will be put into the car. It's been so strong this year. It's either been on the podium or retired. What are we going to see here?
This is pit stops with cars being released at the wrong moment, and that's going to get looked at, isn't it? Contact avoided, but not ideal. Bessler stays out. Constantine in the Audi up into second place stays out. Lemeray stays out. Lefterov is in. So that's the first out of the leading battle to bail, and he had dropped down the order. So maybe that car not happy in the greasy conditions. We've gone from wet to greasy, haven't we?
Absolutely, and very good on colder conditions on the back of restarts. It was good. I wonder whether those tyres need to be cooled down, calmed down a little bit, so that they are working better in the hotter conditions.
So the two to watch are going to be number 117, which Ricardo van der Ende, the winner yesterday, has now handed over to Benjamin Lessen, who's another quick, experienced GT4 driver, and 8, Antoine Potty is now at the wheel. They were the early stoppers, so we'll keep an eye to those two. Number 55, remember, Laurent Hergon took over before the window opened. That car is being reminded it must take the mandatory pit stops. It's still going to have to come back in and serve the time, even though the team have, in their opinion, done the pit stop, but they did it too early, if you're still with me. Right, so we've got Berke Besler in the lead, and he's 3.4 seconds up the road. Now, have a look at this. 6th at the moment is number 94, and it is Felix Hersiger, who has now done the absolute best of anybody in the first sector of the lap. So Hersiger, who is in another of the Sorg Rennsport team Porsches, charging on, and all proof that the road is drying. There are lots of greens in sectors and in lap times.
I don't think we're in a position where by the end of the race, 25 minutes time, we're going to want slicks, but it's going to certainly be wearing the wet tyres to their minimum, I imagine. And remember at Paul Ricard, you don't want to change tyres because it takes such a long time to do so. 3.5 minutes to take the 5 studs off 4 different tyres and get them back out onto circuit. That was losing you too much time to really replicate. And I think the same will be here. So they're just going to have to deal with these changing conditions.
Stéphane Lemeret up the curb then as he hustles on to stay on the tail of Robert Consani. Berke Besler now, having done all of that hard work to get into the lead, now finds himself stuck in the traffic because people have made pit stops and come out ahead of him.
Yeah, exactly. So his pace perhaps not going to be quite as good. There's Florent Brichet just in front, who was at the very head of the field in race 1. Julien and Florian, brothers, but in this particular race, miles down from qualifying.
Car coming out of the pit lane. This is now Antoine Potty charging on and needs to get through the traffic as rapidly as he can.
They've got nice clear track ahead, haven't they?
Yeah, so that's number 23 that was leading early on. Pavel Leftrov has given way now to Stéphane Bostandief, and behind, as you can see, is Antoine Potty. So here are 2 quick cars and relatively early stoppers. Leader in. So there's Besler, there's Consani, there's Lemeret, there's Ibanez, there's Piana. Any more for this? Hersiger, I think, has come in as well. So your top 6 are in the pits, and we'll see where these 2 are in relation. As now, look, the Toyota gets up the inside of the Porsche. Antoine Potty going for a position. These 2 need to stop fighting, otherwise they're not going to jump ahead of those in the pits.
Yeah, exactly. They really did need a clear lap here as fast as possible. It's so important to have a good in and a good out lap as much as it is to have a good pit stop. There's a little bit of a space for Antoine Potty to go down the inside, but that is the racing line. It's going to be slipperier, and he can't carry the momentum through the first part. He's got better momentum through the second part, but still sits behind the Porsche out of Pouin and coming into Fagnes. Defensive work, though, from Bosteniev, and that compromises your speed.
Does a little bit, doesn't it? As you see there, the BMW Benjamin Lessen. And here Antoine Potty is still frustrated. Stéphane Bostandief makes that Porsche wide. And so he is, for the moment, hanging on to the place, but also delaying the pair of them relative to that leading line of 6, 7 cars that's now serving the regulation pit stop. There was the car that led coming into the pit lane, Tom Edgar, to take over now from Berke Besler. Out of the Cour Paul Frère goes Stéphane Bostandief in the Porsche, goes Antoine Potty in the Toyota behind him, and now through that long left of Blanchimont.
Potty was so much better through both Campus and Curve Paul Frère, but got onto the tail of the Porsche, had to back out of it, couldn't carry the momentum because the car was in the way, and so many of the corners around the lap, he's found exactly the same situation. So he comes to the end of the lap and he still hasn't got past.
And drivers then getting ready for their stint. Bostandief then up towards the timing line. Now, of course, as they round La Source, there'll be a line of cars going down the pit lane ready to rejoin the race, and their chances of a good result are going to be very impacted on where they are in that line. There's the leading gaggle look, so Tom Edgar is on his way. You can sense the frustration of Antoine Potty flashing the lights to say, come on, stop fighting. But there, Tom Edgar is going to lead the way. In second place, it will be Benjamin Lariche. And still coming down the hill, there you can see Porsche, there you can see Toyota. They're going to gain a couple of places back because those cars are still coming uphill at not yet race pace, so they're going to jump ahead of Ibanez, aren't they? They're going to get ahead of Piana as well, I would offer you. And there is the Michael Schrei BMW. Yes, they're just going to get ahead. So Piana pitted, Schreier's taking it over. That drops him behind Potty, so the Toyota has benefited on the pit stops.
In the queue, though, that number 2 BMW did actually benefit a couple of positions. We saw him coming out the third car in the pits, and he went in as the fifth car that had pitted on that particular lap.
Antoine Potty was one of the first to take over, wasn't he, from Etienne Shelley, and he's running fourth, so he's the big winner out of the pit stops. He still can't get past Boston-Gif, but he's having another go on the outside line down towards Bruxelles. Can't do it there. Look, they're right on the back of Lariche in second place. And these two, in a sense, have an advantage because they're already up to speed.
Yeah, and there'll be a little bit more temperature in the tyres as well. Lariche has sat there for almost 2 minutes stationary, so he needs to get that car back to working. He needs to discover where the grip is around the circuit. Remember, the first driver's got those couple of laps underneath the safety car at the start of the race. The second driver has to come in and be on it straight away.
Really tough, isn't it, to jump in a car and then have to fight. How the pros, of course, earn their reputations, but we've got a yellow in the middle sector. This is the middle sector, by the way, the end of it coming towards, as Antoine Potty is all over the back of Stéphane Bostin-Gif, who is all over the back of Benjamin Lariche. This is enabling Tom Edgar, though, to build the lead. Edgar getting away up front. Michael Schrein, fifth place in that really attractively coloured silver and blue BMW, but he's not quite close enough as now Potty makes the run up the inside of the court. Paul Frere, surely he's going to get the job done this time. Yes, yes, yes. Through he goes on the inside line. Box ticked up into third place, and that car has evinced so much pace in this stint. I wouldn't put it past him to grab second. Let's see what he can do in terms of the Audi by the end of the lap, because he's got time to even go after the leader.
Just a quick look at the pit stop times from all of our teams. It was 71 seconds that they were obligated to be from pit in to pit out, and most have managed to do it this time. The only one I can see in the top page of drivers is the Bachmann car, which has been in the pits for 1 minute 59.7, so that's a little bit too under, and can't even play a joker with that one, I'm afraid. So there might be a little penalty coming for the car which sits at the moment in 14th position, although that needs to be sorted out. So actually Andreas is 25th on the timing screen.
We've also now got time penalties coming for cars speeding in the pit lane. I'm hesitating because I don't think any of them are in that leading gaggle, so I won't just confuse the situation for now, but when we see any of those cars, we'll touch on it. It doesn't affect the lead battle. Edgar leading Benjamin Lariche by 2.6 seconds, and Antoine Potty is a further 0.4 of a second back. Then it is Stéphane Bostin-Gif, and then way out wide Michael Schrein, the BMW. This is for second. It's side by side. It is Audi versus Toyota. It is Lariche on the inside line. It is Antoine Potty on the outside line. And he is about to find a way through, surely. He crowds the Audi. Lariche tries to stand his ground, but no. Round the outside, job done into the braking zone. Another place gain for Antoine Potty. Really good drive this in the car that started 11th on the grid.
And absolutely what we saw in Paul Ricard in the wet in race 2. The cars to have are the BMWs and the Supras. They're slightly higher, they're slightly taller, they're certainly higher off the ground as well. Look at the ride height in comparison to, say, the Audi. Much, much higher, and they do work really well in these conditions.
Yes, there is a certain amount of commonality, I should say, between the Supra and the BMW platforms. But you've got Tom Edgar and Benjamin Lariche then now split by Antoine Potty, and with clear road ahead, let's see what he can do. The gap was 3 seconds between Edgar and Potty at the start of this lap, but right now Antoine Potty pressing on, as we've been saying, 16 minutes on the clock. He's got time in which he can still catch a pass before the end.
Edgar, Lariche, Potty, Bossaniev, Schrey, the top 5. The loser actually there was Papadopoulos, the NM Racing Ibanez. Remember, he was fighting for the top, well, the lead of the race actually, before the pit stops, dropping down to 6th after the pit stops. And then Elchek in the 94 in 7th position.
And in Pro-Am, Hendrik Still is ahead of Antoine Leclerc. And then in 3rd place in the class now, it is 18 of Lawrence Stegman. The AMS, it is Nicky Leutweiler who is leading there in 14th place.
That's really impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, going very, very well indeed. Well up the order. Number 75, Cayman, that he shares with Ivan Jacoma, with whom he will race in the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa as well. Hugely experienced driver, Nicky Leutweiler. He's in his 60s, I think, now, and has been racing on and off going back to the very early days of Porsche 944 type era. So hugely experienced driver, and all of that experience coming into play where you need it on a track like this in these conditions.
And nice to see that that team has also entered a second car here for Alex Fontana, who was with that combination and that team last year. Ivan Giacomo and Fontana successful, but was replaced this year by Leutwiler, has been brought back into the team and makes his debut for the team this year in this round in the second of those Caymans.
So over the timing line then go the cars, and Tom Edgar, race leader now by just 1 second from Antoine Potti. Lead could change on this lap, couldn't it? As you see, there is number 75, Niki Leutwiler, at the wheel of the AM leading Porsche. Max Trasoldi's BMW is second, and then Alban Maruti in his Cayman, third in class. But Leutwiler then, this is just his warm-up for the 24 hours later on, and it will be quite good going into that race with a class win. Here's your lead battle, absolutely nose to tail. Tom Edgar just ahead of Antoine Potti. So Tom Edgar in the BMW, defending from the Toyota Supra, the type of car that he used to race in British GT.
And I tell you what, they need to do the move fast, because otherwise there'll be a third car in that, and Benjamin Leriche looking really, really strong. And no doubt also Michael Schrey, leading our championship, will want to come and join this little party and will have the ability to. Although we saw the Gabriel Piana not so strong in the car in the first half of the race, and the other one, Benjamin Lassen, down in 15th position.
Yeah. Edgar goes defensive. Is it defensive enough? He gives Potti racing room, and Antoine Potti commits and goes through, and the door is open for Leriche as well. The Audi tries to get up on the inside, change for the race lead, and Antoine Potti then should be able to break away, but it's all eyes on second and third now, with Benjamin Leriche coming back at the blue BMW rather of Tom Edgar. Fourth and fifth are together. Stefan Bostangiv still keeping Michael Schrey at bay, but only just.
Audi using the outside line, not getting too close to the apexes of each of the corners. There's a little bit more grip, especially in these greasier conditions now. There's very little spray coming off the cars. It is still clearly wet conditions, and the curbs will be horrible if you catch them at the wrong angle. And I wonder whether that BMW was better in the wetter conditions than it is now.
There is the fight between Bostangiv, Schrey, then behind them you've got Papadopoulos, and the next car in the queue is number 94. That is the SRS Team Sorg Rennsport Porsche, with Ivan Ekelchik now having taken it over from the very rapid pre-pit stop Felix Hersiger. Leaders come down to the chicane then, so Tom Edgar, having lost the race lead, is actually keeping Leriche at bay, and Michael Schrey getting a little bit frustrated now. He can't find a way past Stefan Bostangiv, and we saw how difficult he was for Potti to get past early on.
Stefan doing an incredible job of defending. It's not the fastest way, but he's keeping some of the very best at bay and keeping that car in the heady heights of where it sits right now for Overdrive Racing. And really, really good result. Leriche looks to the outside. There's no way through there, through La Source, but he'll be looking to try and get a good run down the hill, through Eau Rouge, up the other side, and sit in that big slipstream. Actually gaining all the way down the straight was almost like a missed gear from Edgar there.
Yeah, it was, and he's having to go very, very defensive again now up the curb. That's really brave, bearing in mind how wet and slippery those curbs are. But Antoine Potti now, having done the hard yards to hit the front, can just drive away from the rest of them, can't he? Edgar helping him by defending from the Audi, but then Schrey can't do anything about the Cayman of Bostangiv, and that's the cork in the bottle. Were he to get past, he might be able to go after that second place fight, but he just can't find a way past the Porsche. He's going to have another go conceivably in the background up towards Les Combes, but everything he tries, Bostangiv has an answer to.
Bostangiv driving in his mirrors, absolutely watching where the BMW is behind and making sure that he covers it off. Papadopoulos under pressure as well in the 15 Mercedes. Leriche tries to look to the outside at Bruxelles. We've seen that work, but you have to have a very slow car on the inside. There's two different lines in the dry around there, so lots of different lines in the wet. Down to Jackie X, or Speaker's Corner. It's not actually any different to how it used to be. It just looks very different to how it used to be.
With that line on the inside for the motorbikes now. Right, Leriche has not given up, has he? Edgar still defends into Pouen. This is where he'd lost the lead a lap ago. Leriche right there on his tail now as they swing through that corner. How are the fourth and fifth place cars looking in comparison in terms of the first sector? Bostangiv is lapping quicker than these two, so he's chipping away. He's trying to close up as best he can, bearing in mind that he's got Schrey breathing down his neck.
Well, we saw that weird move coming on the outside of La Source where Edgar kind of stumbled, didn't he? Didn't get a clean drive, and the first sector is from the start line to Les Combes, and that's it.
Bostangiv, 11-second penalty for being short on the pit stop. So Stefan Bostangiv, an 11-second time penalty for a short pit stop. So that's going to help Try in terms of gaining a place, but he wants to be released, then he can go after the others.
Didn't see that. I'm usually quite good at analysing the pit stop times. I missed that one. That's such a shame for Overdrive Racing, who've done so well to get the pole position. They've got kinds of damage to that car that needs to be tidied up after the race weekend, but they don't have the spare parts to tidy it up now here. And yet they're going to be penalised, and the other car to be penalised is the 19 machine of the Backmans.
And also, there is a move around the outside from Michael Schrei. He's ahead, he runs out of road, scrabbles into the chicane. He's ahead, let's see whether he comes out ahead. Yes, he does, just about, as they power their way up towards the line now. So through has gone the BMW, the Porsche, the penalised Porsche fights back. I was also going to tell you that there's another one with a penalty, which is Antoine Leclerc. Porsche goes back ahead of BMW, so Bostangiv retakes the places. He got into the corner too rapidly. He goes out a little bit wide. Here comes Schrei, sideways up the inside. For second place up the inside line goes Lariche, so that should change for second. Right, what's going on for fourth? In the background, we might see them in a moment. Is it going to be Porsche? Is it going to be BMW? It is Porsche back ahead. Fantastic racing this.
That Porsche's so good off the last corner. It's just got so much traction and drive, and the BMW's struggling at very low speed to get out of La Source. We saw it last lap with Tom Edgar. We've just seen it with Michael Schrei, and we've seen it again with Tom Edgar losing that second position.
So Benjamin Lariche then into second place, and Michael Schrei will be absolutely furious. All of that effort came to naught, didn't it? He's also being caught, look, by Ekelchik, by Papadopoulos, by Thies, and by Gael Castelli to make it a long, long line all the way back from 4th to 9th places, and only 8.5 minutes remain.
Absolutely fantastic racing in GT4 Europe, as we always come to expect. It's becoming cleaner and cleaner as well. Right. It's really, really good to see this year, especially far less interruptions. We had 2 yesterday.
We've had 2 today, but you can put that down to the conditions, in fairness, rather than down to driving. But you know, these are powerful cars. They are proper racing cars, and on a circuit like this, in these conditions, they're a handful. Schrei to the outside line. Bostangiv covers off the inside as they come into Pouin. And Schrei not close enough there to really make a move up the inside line.
It's curious, isn't it? Because he surely now knows that he's got a penalty. And presumably, so does Michael Schrei. The team will have told them, don't fight too hard, because he has to serve this penalty. Well, he's not serving a penalty, is he?
He's just added on at the end.
Yeah, so actually, he's been compromised.
Yeah, the Porsche doesn't want to give up the place, because you add 11 seconds, you fall down the order, and the BMW has to find a way past. It is being compromised, and it's about to lose a place, because there to the inside line goes Ekelchik. The Cayman up the inside line there, tries to make the move into Paul Frere, Ivan Ekelchik, still alongside Michael Schrei, and still can't go through.
I love that's exactly the way to do it. Surprise your rival. Don't keep chipping away at the same places. Do something different, improvise, and they're still running side by side. Around the outside, going into Blanchemont's going to be pretty brave. Running side by side, a tool in Blanchemont. He decides against it and maybe trying to line something up into the chicane, but actually the Porsche loses ground, and now it's flashing lights from the number 1 Supra behind.
That car lost out on the pit stops, didn't it? But now it's coming back into the picture. Corentin Thies at the wheel of it. Now there was the Porsche, was that cutting the chicane a little bit? Seems to be the wrong side of the curve. Schrei slides out. That car struggling for grip now as the road gets drier, and we're not dry, we're greasy. You can see how much of a handful the cars are becoming as they're round the outside once again to try to make a move. Ivan Ekelchik, he's on the wrong line for La Source though, and the tighter, shorter line is claimed back by Schrei, who gets completely sideways up the curve and hands the place to Ekelchik. Good save, but he was going nowhere with the car that sideways on that wet painted curb.
And the sausage, he just got the wrong side of the sausage, didn't it? And it dragged the rear around, and that BMW, as we said, the lap ago, struggling at low speed to get the traction down, and we've seen that there again. Others struggling to stay on the circuit. In the middle part of the lap, though, the BMW is okay. The mid-speed corners, it's fine. It's just the really slow ones, it's not able to get the traction down.
There are 1 or 2 drivers being warned about track limits, inevitably, as up towards Les Combes they come here. Another car look in the background that's creeping into the mix all the while is number 111, the black Audi there. Gael Castelli has taken over from Alexandre Cugno. Now remember that Castelli is an ex-Toyota driver. He's about to have a go at the Toyota of Thies just up the road ahead of him. He's on the inside line. He's cleared 1. He might clear 2. He does! And here comes the Supra up the inside. Is there going to be contact? The BM's forced wide. The Audi spins. mayhem at Bruxelles, and it was all looking so good.
Oh, he was doing so well. The two had compromised themselves through the Lecom section of turns, and so the Audi Castelli was able just to carry momentum. And I think there might have been a bit contact, just a tiniest bit of contact to send the 111 around, but that's a real shame for that little battle. And in benefit has been Papadopoulos, because he's got ahead of Castelli, he's got ahead of Schrei now, and that's 2 places gained. We're definitely not in slick weather territory. It does look on the screens as though we could be, but that is just greasy all around the circuit. It's going to be a right headache for those getting prepared for the GT3 24 hours, because by the time we get to there, it might well be. And here's a replay now. Got one, he got a second. Now, is there a bit of contact? Yes, there is. That's a shame. The number 1 goes down the inside and taps the 111 around. No damage either.
Then he can't get back because he needs to reverse out of there, wait for a gap in the traffic. Visibility not that great. Really disappointing after Gael Castelli's great pace comes to naught. Got to say, though, this is a mega effort by Antoine Potti. Comes now out of the chicane. He's going to have 2 more laps to go, isn't he? And that car, 11th on the grid, stormed its way into contention. And now he's going for the wetter part of the road.
Yeah, now he's hunting for the wet because he's trying to cool those tyres down as Papadopoulos goes deep into the first part of the chicane. Surely Michael Schrei is going to be able to switch past. It changed earlier on in the lap. And, yeah, again, there's just no traction in that BMW.
The Mercedes getting better as the race wears on. That BMW falling away and coming under attack now. Look, also from the Wayrish-driven Audi there that goes to the inside line. And also Sacha Bottomann's car coming into the mix as well. So downhill comes now the Audi look through on the inside line. So that is the Lonnie Martin's car. Yes, so Lonnie Martin's almost level with Schrei. Can't commit going into Eau Rouge. Michael Schrei hangs on to the place for now. But that BMW that's had a race win, came here as the championship leading car. Like many, struggling in the mixed weather we've got now.
Working much, much better when it was wetter, and now struggling. The 2 Porsches up with each other. The 94 machine looking very, very strong. Bostanjev, though the master of defence, he's not been troubled for the last couple of laps. It's remarkable what he's managed to do, considering he certainly hasn't had the pace of the guys that have been trying to get past him. And he still sits there in 4th position.
Well, the car is wide, and Bostanjev's car is very wide right now. Right there behind him, you've got the Ivan Ekelchik Porsche that dives to the inside at Speaker's Corner. He's done it again. Surprise your rival, said Ben, and he has done it. So Ekelchik does take Bostanjev by surprise, and a flash of the headlights as if to say, well, you didn't need to overtake me. Well, hard luck. Job done. Ekelchik goes by.
And he's done that twice now in places where you wouldn't usually see overtaking moves. It's a really, really good work.
So together they run. In the background, way out wide, goes Corentin Thiers. But the battle-scarred Porsche from pole, it has faded over the course of the race, which is a shame, but it's been driven hard and driven well. That is full certain.
I think it'd still be one of the best results that car has had this year, if not ever in GT4 Europe.
So much of it comes down to qualifying. 20-minute session, so many cars. It is a bit of a lottery, but it does, if you get it right, set you up for the weekend. However, you need a good race driver, and Antoine Potti has proved to be just that. Turns now up through Blanchimont. Look at that, absolutely perfect. Stays off the white line, stays off the curb, straight back to the wetter part of the road, gets the car lined up ready for the chicane, and then he's going to start the last lap of this 6th race of the season in GT4 European Series. That's the high shot looking down from the top of the race control building, the pit brasserie. And then if we just turn ourselves a little bit to the left, a different perspective of the almost snake-like nature of the chicane. See how it almost doubles back on itself.
So tight.
Yeah.
I don't think you get the same perception on television just how completely stopped you need to be to get around that.
And it climbs as well. I mean, there's elevation from the first bit to the exit of it. Great shot, that. Last lap, and there the fight is on between Andreas Papadopoulos, Lonnie Martins, and Michael Schrei has now fallen back into 9th place. And we've got a very slow Mercedes going over the timing line, which is the Marcel Lenez Marc de Fulgencio car. But this Mercedes looking very pacey indeed as Papadopoulos tries to keep Lonnie Martins' Audi at bay. Schrei fading in the background. Potti, 4.5 seconds clear up the road.
Martin's totally off the road and more climbing over the hill, trying to keep the momentum to stay with the Mercedes. The Toyota there well clear and on the tail now of the Cayman to try and get himself up into the top 5 in its debut. And round the outside, will it work? We're not going to see. Here's Konstantin Lachnauer's car, which has now been handed over to Victor Reirik, and they were side by side, the two Aston Martins, trying to fight. This is the fight for the best Aston Martin of the 3, and also has the Pro-Am Cup leaders in the mix as well.
So it's all happening as ever in GT4 with class leadership changes. The clock has hit 0, checker flag is at the ready, yellow flag out in the first sector. Action everywhere. It's been another really, really good race. It's amazing what difference weather can do to a race, and this, with it drying and catching people out all the way through, has given us so much to look at. Antoine Potty and co-driver Etienne Shelley then are heading for a win ahead of Benjamin Lariche and Robert Consani. And Tom Edgar and Berke Besler, excellent result for 3rd, and it's all changing behind still.
Yeah, Tierse's got himself ahead of Bostaniev, and Martins has got himself ahead quite significantly of Papadopoulos there. So 2 changes through presumably Bruxelles, and you have to say that Audi of Martins looking really, really strong in these last couple of laps, but he's going to run out of time. Antoine Potty, incredible at Paul Ricard on slick tyres in the wet. Today he's demonstrated he can do it on the wet tyre as well, with so much familiarity in this car, a championship in the Supra, and of course being Belgium helps too.
To the checkered flag then, it is going to be a win for the Swift Racing Events Supra. Antoine Potty, Etienne Shelley, the drivers out of the chicane comes Toyota number 8, accelerates up towards the line. Those tyres have had some hammer in this race. As the checkered flag is waved, it is a win for the Toyota Supra. 20 laps in the book. Antoine Potty and Etienne Shelley win for the first time this year. 2nd to Benjamin Lariche and Robert Consani. And 3rd to Tom Edgar and Berke Besler. And yesterday's winners are running in 25th place, Benjamin Lessen and Ricardo van der Ende. So shows how different your results can be over the course of a weekend. I think they've lost a lap as well in so doing. The rest come pouring through. 4th to Ivan Echelchik, 5th to Corentin Thies, 6th to Stefan Bostangiv ahead of Lonnie Martins, Alexandre Papadopoulos. Michael Schrei takes 9th, and then in 10th place ultimately was the Aston Martin, I should say, of Victor Weyrich. And still the class battles come through. Nicky Leutwiler goes over the timing line and hangs on to secure the AM victory.
Best in Scandinavia, Emma Skadas in the Toyota Supra, down in 24th position overall, but absolutely duplicating what we saw in Paul Ricard last time out in GT4 Scandinavia. We didn't get a chance really to follow that battle because there was so much going on ahead, but Skaras ahead of the McLaren of Alfab of Daniel Roos, the 288, and then Bouveng in the BMW in 3rd. That is overall in GT4 Scandinavia, but of course they do have 2 classes. We don't have enough colours to the timing screen. Here they are, they're still coming over now, the last couple of cars, and not too many retirements.
Well, a really impressive drive, you've got to say, by both Etienne Shelley and Antoine Potty. Shelley did a good job in his stint because he chipped his way up the order and...
He's fishing.
Camera on a pole, isn't it?
Yes, I hope so.
I think, I hope. It's not that wet, surely. Yeah. We'll have to ask John Watson about that because he's our great fisherman. He'll know what the fish are up in the inside of Bruxelles. Etienne Shelley, good stint, I was thinking about. He was making places, gaining ground, and set up Antoine Potty for a really good second stint. Potty pushed hard, and then, as we were saying, the intelligence came to look after the tyres. Stefan Bostangiv knows how to defend. He's proved that.
Now, what's going on with that car? Oh, it's now had its penalty added to its time, so it's dropped from the top 5 into 13th position overall, which is a real shame for Overdrive. They're clearly not got the same kind of budgets as some of the other teams down in the GT4 paddock, and that, I think, from the spares that they've had to reuse across the weekend, pretty clear. But to get a kind of result like that is so good, and a shame to be caught out just by half a second. If they'd just gone half a second longer, they would have been able to play their joker, but unfortunately they were under 2 minutes.
Antoine Potty had a win at Spa last year in this championship, and he's done it again 12 months on. So Antoine Potty and Etienne Shelley take the win ahead of Benjamin Lariche and Robert Consani, and then Tom Edgar and Berke Besler in third spot. Fourth to Ivan Ekelchik in the number 94 Porsche that he shares with Felix Hersiger. And fifth to number 1 Supra, Corentin Thiers and Stéphane Lemeray. So there is the winning Supra making its way round back to pit lane and ultimately to the podium. But I still, having seen GT4 with small grids for a number of years, I'm always heartened by the size of a grid these days, and you know, the best part of 60 cars is fantastic. Right, there's the drone looking down. That's a great shot, isn't it? It also shows how dry Spa is becoming. Let's have another look at the result then. Potty and Shelley, the winners. Lariche and Consani second, ahead of Tom Edgar and Berke Besler. Ivan Ekelchik and Felix Hersiger fourth. Corentin Thiers and Stéphane Lemeray in fifth, with Lonnie Martins and Sacha Bottomant sixth. Alexandre Papadopoulos and Luc Ibanez seventh. Michael Schrei and Gabriele Piana eighth, from Victor Weyrich and Constantin Lachnau. Bailey Voisin and Tom Verdier in 10th. In 11th place, in the end, was the Pro-Am winning car. That was Lorenz Stegman and Markus Lundstrass. The best of the AMs is to be found a little bit further down the order. Nicky Leutwiler in 21st place. And 290, the winning car out of the Scandinavian part of the race. It's another Supra success. Emil Skaras and Hans Holmlund taking the Scandinavian win in 21st place overall. So lots for Toyota to celebrate, and the Swift Racing Events squad can celebrate the win outright with Antoine Potty and Etienne Shelley. So you can see the size of that result. I won't read everybody's name out, but look at that and you can pick out one or two that are normally quick drivers and should have been further up. Those that had problems, like Alain Fette and Laurent Hergon, with a second pit stop, ending up 42nd when they thought they'd bought the golden ticket for a race win.
And a big hit for Christophe Amon and Gregoire Gilbert, having to retire their car down at the chicane here after contact with what seems to be the 78 of Alex Denning and Jack Mitchell. Didn't get aboard that car. And they were also, remember, on the front row of the grid, incredibly strong in the early part of the race. If it had been a dry race, I think we might have seen a very strong result from that McLaren.
Well, the winning car using the endurance pits, so it's quite a long drive down to that section where the Parc Fermé will be, and the top three in the classes being marshalled into the right place. Now, Gemma Scott is down there and can go and have a word with Etienne Shelley out of the car, Antoine Potty about to get out of the car. Race winners in the 6th race of the season in GT4 European Series. There with Gemma.
Etienne, that's a fantastic result for you guys. You drove a brilliant first stint. It was difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah, the conditions were tricky, but yeah, the car was very perfect, and yeah, we managed very good the strategy as well with the team. So yeah, thanks to all X-Swift Racing, TJ Customer Racing, and Antoine for his brilliant job. And yeah, we win. Let's go.
You can't get out the car at the moment. Is there a problem with the brake? Let's go and grab him. We'll have a quick word with Antoine. Tu vas rester dans la voiture?
Il n'y a pas de cale, et salut Thomas, hein. Mais ouais, il n'y a pas de cale, mais en tout cas, belle victoire, on revient de loin. 12e, donc c'est vraiment bien, 12-1, c'est vraiment bien. Hier, c'était un peu plus compliqué. Ouais, partir 19, c'était un peu plus compliqué. En plus, on a eu quelques on va dire, difficultés à remonter, mais bon week-end overall.
Fantastic, congratulations to you. Not an easy weekend for them, of course, and he's got a problem on the car. He can't get out at the moment because he's got no brakes.
So he needs to stay with his foot on the pedal. That makes sense. Thanks, Gemma. Robert Consani and Benjamin Lariche celebrate 2nd place. And the podium is being made ready. This in the slow motion, the Supra turning its way just with a skim of the curb. And you can see, again, we keep talking, Ben, about the elevation. In slow motion and with the zoom like that, you can see how it does climb through the chicane.
I'd love to see what state of their tyres are at the end of this race. I think some of those cars would have burnt through a lot of their wet tyre. Looking at that slow-mo, at that point in the race, the tyres didn't look too bad. It's difficult to see side-on, but certainly as it was face-on, we could see. And Burson Automotive, a strong weekend, hard work from the Turkish team with those early problems at the early part of the weekend, but they will be on the podium with Tom Edgar and the number 12 machine.
So the drivers do make their way to the podium. And there you can see the cars from the classes rounded up at the foot of the endurance podium. It's used there because of the grandstands and the fan village opposite. Still there are cars trickling down the pit lane, some of those stragglers making their way down the pit road, but another really, really good race. And we've enjoyed some excellent racing out of GT4 European Series, not just this year, but for a number of years now. And it's also fascinating, isn't it, as well, to see the drivers that come into this with limited experience then move on and progress into GT3 racing.
Yeah, and some drivers we may will be seeing in the GT3 race that begins at 4:30 local time. A couple of drivers doing double bubble. Don't forget that the next round of the championship, we are at the midpoint of the season now, and we'll kick off the second half of the season in Misano in just a couple of weeks' time, the 15th and 16th of July. And then they will rejoin that's with the sprint series of SRO. Hockenheim also on the 2nd and 3rd of September, and they will rejoin the European Endurance Cup in Barcelona in the last days of September and early October for the end of season, end of the points scoring rounds, and then those that want to could join us in Vallelunga for the Endurance 6-hour event, which is open to anybody that really wants to participate in it.
Yeah, for many, many years, the Rome 6 Hours has been Vallelunga's end-of-season endurance race, but it's not had an identity for a while, and SRO have identified that's a perfect way of giving the track time to the GT4 drivers that they've always asked for, because although this fits really nicely as a 1-hour race, you know, drivers always want more track time. And yes, you get free practice and qualifying and the races, but there's always more racing that you'd like to do, and more mileage.
For instance, in the world of British GT, the GT4 cars will drive with the GT3s, and when it's a 3-hour race, they will do an endurance 3-hour race. So they're totally capable of doing it. It's just in the European Championship, we have this set format of 2 1-hour events, which really become sprints and don't give you the sensation or the setup to then move in and then drive as a, let's say, a 24-hour race here at Spa or the 6-hour race at Paul Ricard.
So drivers are being rounded up, ready for the podium. But as we await the drivers, let's have a look at the highlights of what was a very, very lively race indeed. Led away by Pavel Lefterov. We started behind the safety car, so with the track wet, it was Lefterov ahead of Alex Denning as they turned their way down through La Source. And early on a very wet road, compare and contrast now, the Porsche looked as though it was going to be able to romp away. Denning, in the meantime, though, was struggling in the wet, and he was passed first by Beke Besler's BMW, and he would lose more places before the end of that stint, as off the road went the Porsche in the hands of Jordan Wallace, and that brought out a safety car. And then we had a second interruption when Marc Lopez Gutierrez went off the road as well. Eventually, though, Pavel Lefterov started to struggle, and he fell down the order, enabling Beke Besler with the better paced BMW to go through. At the back of the pack, though, was Etienne Shelley, working his way forward and putting the car into the pits early. Gave an absolutely ideal opportunity for Antoine Potti to come through to take the race win. It was a good pit stop, and then he had to battle his way past Stefan Bostangiev's Porsche. Having done that, he came up to attack the Audi and then Tom Edgar's BMW. Toyota in the lead as they came through Point, and once ahead he just pulled away. For second place, Benjamin Riche made his move against the BMW and went by. That put the Audi up into second spot with a good move as they headed downhill. But there was no stopping the Supra. Antoine Potti and Etienne Shelley coming through to score honours in the second race of the weekend in GT4 European Series. And just like yesterday's, it has proved to be another absolute belter. And the first win of the year for the Supra. So the drivers then making their way to the podium. The bottles are there, the trophies are being made ready, and as soon as everybody is where they need to be, then the instruction will be given that drivers can step forward. So 3 classes that we have, and it's going to be, I think I'm right in saying, Pro-Am that goes first, where for third place it will be Mike Parisi and Nico Gomar, second in Pro-Am to the combination of Hendrik Still and Max Kronberg, and the category winners, Lauren Stegman and Marcus Lungstrass.
And that's great news for the 89 machine, because that was a car that was changed, the chassis was changed, they had difficulties getting the car out into qualifying into Q1, they fixed it for Q2, and the 89 picks up a trophy. And our own brand new sponsor, Rafael Martinez, the founder of Rafa Racing Club, is presenting those trophies. Sadly, didn't get a chance to go racing today. The McLaren trophy that he is part of cancelled in the end due to the conditions in the early part of the day. But he is a really huge supporter now of both the sim racing and the GT4 European Series. And it's a great thanks that Rafa Racing Club is now part of, partner sponsor of the championship.
So the drivers then pose for the photographs, and then we'll make their way from the podium away back to the teams, and we can catch up on what's been going on then in the championship as a result of that race. But happy drivers then celebrating, and team representatives coming to pose for the cameras as well.
So that's 11th, 14th and 17th in the general classification. That is not bad at all, considering we didn't have a late interruption. We had early interruptions, but the racing was clean and interruption-free post-pit stops and post-safety cars. The drivers leave the podium, and we will be able to reset for another one.
Now, this is how we stand in Pro-Am. Even though they didn't finish, Greg Gilbert and Christophe Amont are still ahead, with Antoine Leclerc and Loic Villiger second, and Henrik Still and Max Kronberg third. Markus Lundstrass and Lawrence Stegman now fourth, just 1 point back after that win. Noam Abramczyk and Romain Wozniak are next, and rounding out the top six, Nicolas Gomard and Mike Parisi, who've had a slightly better second race than their first.
Trying to work out what happened to Leclerc and Villiger, because they ended up in 38th position. I wonder whether they had an issue on the final lap.
Well, they had that penalty for a short pit stop.
Did they?
We did touch on it during the course of the race, and I bet we've had so many since then that have taken it, that they were another one with a penalty for a short pit stop. It came when we got all excited about the Schrei battle with Bostogne, so it may well have been overlooked in all of that, but we did touch on it oh so briefly. Right, the drivers for the next podium are the Silvers, and so for third in the class, Tom Edgar and Berke Besler. For second in the class, Benjamin Lariche and Robert Conseny, and on the top step, Antoine Potti and Etienne Shelley. So congratulations to the drivers. Rather frustrated, to say the least, looking Tom Edgar there, having come so close to a win, but not being able to repel the challenge of the Toyota nor the Audi right at the very end. Davide Lorenzi, the head of commercial motorsports, Pirelli, is there to hand over the trophies, winning team representatives there as well. And for the X-Swift Racing Events team, Belgian team, a really good result. A home win then for the local team. Trophies handed over, and their race winners celebrate victory.
It does feel very much as though the Constantin Lariche and Shelley Potti battle is going to be the one to watch for the championship, with perhaps adding Schrei and Piana to the mix, who just, I think, maybe had their BMW set up for drier conditions than they ended up experiencing out there. And so it was Besler and Tom Edgar that ended up being the best of the BMWs and on the podium as well. But Piana and Schrei do still lead the championship, only by a couple of points now.
So this is how Silver looks. Gabriele Piana and Michael Schrei, 3 points up from Etienne Shelley and Antoine Potti. Berke Besler and Tom Edgar come next. Benjamin Lariche and Robert Conseny are in contention, although there's some gap there before you get to Marc de Fulgencio and Marcel Lennertz, with Gael Casseley's spin hurting him and Alexandre Cugnot. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens next time out at a very different type of circuit, the much flatter Misano. As Ben was saying earlier on, the championship there will support the Sprint Cup, for Fanatec GT. And so now the AMs and the Scandinavian drivers are to be celebrated. So the third placed AM crew steps forward, and it is Laurent Hergon and Alain Ferté. After the 2 pit stops for second place, we have then Alban Varuti on his own once again, and Ivan Jacoma and Niki Ludweiler are the winners. So the AM drivers are about to receive their trophies, and again, because they are a bit further down the order, they occasionally get overlooked, but the AM fight is as fierce as anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, and very impressive. Alban Varuti was very, very strong in Ricard last time out. Niki Ludweiler finishing 27th overall, so right in the middle of the pack. Varuti was 36th, and then Hergon Fuerte ending up third despite making 2 pit stops because they made their first pit stop outside the window, but they still managed to get third position. They're second in the championship coming into this weekend. I think Alban Varuti, though, will have a healthy margin at the head of that championship standings.
So Alban Varuti, again, going solo, takes a slightly longer pit stop as well, so he always needs a late race safety car to catapult him back into the mix. But the podium then overlooking the endurance pits in use. The Scandinavian drivers, I think, they get a podium as well, but the European Series podium ceremonies are at an end. Drivers make their way off the podium, and Alban Varuti does not only lead AM, but he leads by some margin now from Alain Ferté and Laurent Hergon, with Kevin Jimenez and Florent Grisot next, ahead of Niki Ludweiler and Ivan Jacoma. Max Tresoldi and Davide Meloni now 5th, ahead of Julien Piguet. Action all the way from the GT4 European Series, and there's more to come in about 3 weeks' time when we go to Misano. We'll see you there, but for now from Spa, from Ben Constantiouris and David Addison, goodbye.